9 times out of 10, man, it almost always has to do with like what role are you playing in your suffering.
Oh, 100%.
You know, and like that's such a hard pill to swallow at first, but like once you finally do, it just makes life so much easier. You're so much better an assessor of your life and the things around you and like how to solve your problems and how to recognize the problems. Like, You're listening to Little Pricks Podcast. We're so happy you're here. Get comfortable and enjoy the episode. What's up, guys? Welcome back to the podcast, the new studio. You're tuning into Little Pricks Podcast. We're here with Fareed, and my name's Devon. And we're super excited to bring you guys another episode. I'm super excited to finally be in what I hope is the permanent studio now. And, we've been bouncing around a lot. We've been in like 3 different places. 4. Is this the 4th? Is this the 4th studio? This is the 4th studio.
Boom. 4.
I really hope this is the last studio.
I don't. I hope there's one more.
Not positive that this is going to be the final layout, but here we are nonetheless. We're here to talk to you about fun things, about things that make you think, things that make you feel. And we have new cameras to put on Fareed's gorgeous face. Cut to that camera. Look at that. And then you'll cut to mine and realize that there is no difference whatsoever. So, or maybe it's this that I can make a cheap average camera look just as good as an $800 camera. Maybe that's the thing.
Devon's trying to keep us from buying the camera.
No, I'm going to buy the camera. It just hurts. It just hurts my feelings.
Good.
Yeah. So what are we talking about today, buddy? Tell me what we're diving into.
We have a really interesting topic today. And that one is, you don't hate people, you are simply unhealed.
You know, that one hurts. That one hurts real bad.
I think most of these topics hurt real bad for you at some point.
Yeah.
But I don't think it's so much about hurting. I think it's more of almost like satire of what we see in daily life, civilization. Like I had one particular person who triggered this thought in my head. Mm-hmm. Right, I was having a conversation with a woman at my store, and she just said, "I hate going outside of my house, and I absolutely hate dealing with people."
Bring my mic closer to you. Yeah, like you need to have it like up here, so that way, because like when we're turning our heads, or here, since we have the power of editing.
Today's concept stems from a conversation I had with a woman inside of my store, and it was a conversation that really kind of elicited sad feelings for the state of humanity or society. You know, she said a couple of words that just kind of rung in my head so aggressively. And the first one was, "I hate leaving my house."
What?
And that was one that was like, whoa, why?
Yeah.
Right? And then the second one was, "I hate leaving my house because I have to interact with people." And to me, that was one of the most awful...
Yeah, like I was gonna say that doesn't sound very good.
No, it was one of the most sad things I'd heard, because I think part of the beauty of life is interacting with your fellow man.
Well, yeah,
getting to experience this journey of life with people around you. You know, it's not a lot of fun if you go to Disneyland by yourself and have no one to talk to, show it with, or experience it with. It's just a bunch of people in costumes creeping you out at that point.
Right.
And so this concept goes, you know, you often hear people joke about how they hate people but love their dog.
Oh, yeah. Right.
You know?
Yeah, I know. I've actually heard that one a lot. That's fair.
And it's funny when you hear it once. It's funny when you hear it twice. It starts to become concerning when you keep hearing it as a repeating concept in society. Right. Because it shows a level of exhaustion that people have.
Well, yeah, or you just like set at this baseline of like discontent for people in general. Mm-hmm. And it's like, why? I don't know. That's out there.
You kind of keep hearing the same terms, right? It's, I love being alone, or I love being away from people, or I love my animals more than I love people.
Yeah, the latter is more concerning. I think like somebody saying they enjoy their alone time is just simply someone that's maybe a little bit more introverted. Like that's okay, but saying that like, oh, I prefer my dog over people, that one's a little concerning.
It's a little concerning, right? Like there's a massive difference. You're right. It's okay to want alone time.
Yeah.
Like
I personally have to, like, when my battery needs recharge, I'm, like, at baseline pretty extroverted, and I like being around people. But, man, when I've had it, I'm done. Like, I don't want to go out. I don't want to go do a bunch of things. I don't want to go out to dinner. I don't want to talk on the phone. I want left alone. Mm-hmm. I want to recharge in solace.
I agree. I'm the same way.
Yeah.
It takes energy to be these bubbly, happy human beings that we are.
Yeah, for sure.
So... it's just too much of a common sentiment in people. And if you were to listen to it, you would start to think that most of us just hate people. And that to me is so concerning, right?
Yeah,
it's a joke that people make so often now. You have to start asking yourself, why is it ringing so loud? Why is this a sentiment that people keep perpetuating?
Well, I mean, okay, so...
Like, do you make that joke?
No. I think I have before. Like, I can definitely recall times in my life where I've, like, maybe not dogs specifically, but, like, my fish. I kept a lot of aquarium fish. I'm like, yeah, I'd just rather
That's a whole
hang out
level
and
of
look.
lonely, sir.
Yeah, I know, right?
Look at the fish, look at the fish, look at the fish.
Yeah.
Oh, no fish.
But, yeah, I mean, I don't know. I don't think I've ever, like, been super diehard about it, but I've said stuff like that before, I suppose. And I think that just, I mean, there's a lot of places that can potentially stem from, right? Like, when you say the statement, I prefer my dog over people, like you have to be kind of curious about where that stems from, right? Like a lot of that could potentially come from the possibility that people have to kind of trigger certain things that you like feel like lack of emotional regulation, or like they might trigger certain things in you, whereas like a dog can't really do that as much. It's a dog. It doesn't have the capacity to say something to you or invoke emotion in you that a person could, right? Like so maybe that's part of the reason why. What do you think?
As a dog owner, I disagree with that, but as a general concept, I can get behind that.
Yeah.
Like my dogs have some emotional intelligence. I get that.
Yeah. Okay.
And I think a lot of times people like to maybe push that emotional intelligence a little too far. Like a dog is not enough. A dog will never replace a solid partner.
Right. No.
Right. A dog will never replace a good friend.
Sure.
A dog just can't do these things. A dog is more of I'm not saying a replacement, but a placeholder for like children. Because that's what they are.
I can see that. Yeah,
right?
Like I think the fact that I'm never going to have kids, I'm probably going to have some dogs at some point.
You're going to be a crazy dog person, yes. And that's okay, right?
I don't know about a crazy dog. I don't even have a bunch. But, a couple, sure.
Well, you can borrow my children.
I know. I like when they come over here.
What? Not my dogs. My real children. When I have children.
Oh, I was talking about the dogs.
For a moment, I was like, wait, what kids?
No.
But, okay, so we want to define that problem. And the problem, in my mind, lies in the idea that we start to believe that people do actually suck, right? After hearing it enough times, and our brains seek out reasons why it's actually true.
And that's really interesting, man. And I think we've maybe talked about that on the podcast before, but that is so true. And you don't realize the power that you wield in your noggin, man. You don't realize because and largely, yes, that is what comes from, people saying, oh, I prefer my dog over people. You have convinced your brain, or you are constantly your brain's constantly trying to find evidence of the things that you've told it. And if you tell it certain things like people suck, or people are always out to hurt me, or my dog would never do anything, or like, my dog's my best friend and I prefer them much over anyone else, like your brain, like a heat-seeking missile, will find evidence to prove right what you have told it. Mm-hmm. And, that's a huge one. And your mentality on that, God, is so important. So, yeah, that's a good one for sure.
So then I start to ask certain questions, right? Like, why do we dislike the company of people in general? We're communal, right? We are communal people. Yet we complain about our dislike for others.
I think that touches base again, man. Like people would prefer their dog because their dog does not have the capacity to invoke emotion in them or to trigger certain things in them like a person does.
I would go a lot further.
Yeah?
Yes.
Okay.
I believe that our dislike for people and our desire to push away from what is natural, which is that communal sense of being, is a lack of accountability. Because you have to be accountable to people's feelings.
Wow.
You can't just sit there and say whatever stupid stuff you want to say.
I did not see that one coming. Wow. I did not see that one coming.
I mean, think about it, right? To have a solid relationship with somebody, you have to be somewhat self-aware of the things you say, the way you say it, the way you represent yourself.
Yep, you're totally right, man.
You're
totally right.
And then people get upset. Well, they're too delicate. They're too emotional. Right. They're too da-da-da-da-da, right? You start to, you lack that self-accountability, right? You have someone that you have to basically be accountable to.
Yeah.
And that's what conversations are. Or you do the flip side where you start to say, well, they're too much drama. They're too much this. But it's never you.
Right.
And that's the problem, right? When it's the complete opposite. The problem is always you.
Isn't that so funny? Like, just in general in life, like, it's always you. It's always you. Like, I don't want to say that's pretty generalized, but I don't know. It's just so funny to me that 9 times out of 10, man, it almost always has to do with, like, what role are you playing in your suffering?
Oh, 100%.
And, like, that's such a hard pill to swallow at first, but, like, once you finally do, it just makes life so much easier. You're so much better an assessor of your life and the things around you and, like, how to solve your problems and how to recognize the problems. Like, anyway.
100% of the 50% of the problem is you.
Yeah.
That's the biggest one, right? So another concept we have to wrap our head around, right, is it healthy for us to dislike others so much that the joke feels normal to make?
Well, I think that's, like, the point of, like, recognizing that you have a problem, right? Like, when you get to the point where it feels normal, or it's just like a casual, like, oh, what's the big deal? It's like kind of, remember the episode we shot back when I was like, oh yeah, no big deal. I just don't celebrate. I just don't like holidays. I don't like being around people and celebrating and having, fellowship with other humans. And you guys were like, what?
That's not okay. That's
not
healthy.
And I'm like,
whatsoever.
What's the problem? Why is everybody freaking out? And they're like, you guys are like, because that's not okay, man.
Buddy, you gotta love people.
Yeah. So I think the question you asked was, is it normal or is it healthy to get to the point where making the joke like that seems, laissez-faire, casual? No. I think that's where you realize, oh, I have a problem.
So then we ask questions like, what is the root of the issue? Why do we feel like everyone sucks around us?
Personal experiences, I suppose. Like, for me, I think, if I would think back of, like, why would I say something like that? I think it's just personal experience. Like, you've been burned by the stove enough times, you're like, you know what? I'm just not going to cook anymore.
So that's a good place to
when, like,
question.
is obviously that's not the solution. You have to.
What burns you? What's the part of the stove that burns you? Is it your reaction to people? Or is it the way you interact with people? Right? Or is it the people you've chosen poorly?
I think, I don't know how much it would be like, oh, it's the people you've chosen poorly. I think that you can definitely choose poorly. Like, I'm not saying you can't, but it's not always your fault. Like, sometimes people are just people and they make mistakes. And, people treat you the way that they feel about themselves.
It could also be the fact that we sometimes reflect the issues we see in ourselves onto others, and we don't want to deal with that. We don't want to deal with it on a little of ourselves, let alone on others.
No, you're right. Yeah, it could be a little bit of projection also, and, like, not wanting to deal with the feelings that arise when you deal with other people and realize that, subconsciously you've got a lot to work on, and then you've got things and triggers that are on you to solve, and that's a potential for sure. That's a good one. That's a good one.
And it might just be a mixture of a bunch of different things too, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Like we have deep-rooted problems. We simply project on others.
Yeah.
We start to see the problems in others and ourselves. And then we simply just kind of boil it down to, well, I just don't like people. I think
that's like the easy answer. It's like, nah, I just don't like people. And it's like, why don't you peel back a couple of those layers?
And I think it comes down to a simple answer, right? Is that, are you simply unhealed?
Unhealed. I don't know.
Unhealed from some like kind of traumatic wound.
Yeah, like it's this like ever evolving process. I don't know. I try to move away from that word. It's hard to, because it's like it's a word. Healed and unhealed is like a really easy way to compartmentalize or conceptualize the things that we're talking about. But I agree. At the end of the day,
you're unhealed on something, right?
Right.
It's not like you are unhealed as a person entirely,
right?
So much as it might become you're unhealed in a certain topic. Maybe you're unhealed in the concept of how do I accept that other people have emotions?
Well, and that's a tough one, right? Like accepting that other people have as challenging and uniquely, you know, let me think about this. I'm struggling on the words. So
Experiences.
Yeah, like that's the thing. Accepting that people have lives that are as uniquely challenging as yours, and they have all these emotions, and they're living these lives with all these different layers, the same as you. And like if you're in a place where you can't compartmentalize and navigate and healthily regulate this complex life and set of emotions and experiences that you have, you want to add on top of that somebody else's and being able to empathize with that, like good luck.
Agreed.
So
I'm going to say that we have these potential issues already, right? Or this concept is laid out. Now we discuss the potential issues or symptoms of it that we can start to look out for, right? Like I would say that you are probably a person that doesn't have a ton of stability.
Yeah.
You could be considering yourself unstable.
Yeah.
Probably a lack of emotional regulation. Because if you can't stand the concept of someone else around you, you're probably not regulating your emotions pretty well.
Right. That's exactly what I said, for sure. Like you want to add on top of that the complexity of others and be empathetic for them. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And then you have the lack of accountability in others.
That's the one that stings that I wasn't expecting. I was like, ooh, ouch. Like that one steps on the toes for sure, but it's true.
I also think it goes both ways, though, right? You can't hold them accountable because you don't have that emotional regulation. And you sure as hell can't hold yourself accountable.
Yeah.
It's just one of those things. Like I understand that people becoming burned by other people start to wonder, like, wow, people are just awful. But you have to take a moment to self-reflect. Like, what hurt in you caused you to choose those people? Because that's where the accountability comes into, right? If you continuously pick people that are bad for you, it's not that people are bad. It's that you're bad at picking people. That's
essentially.
That's a huge discussion that I've had to go into, right? Like, I've had this particular discussion numerous times with people, right? Women in particular, right? Where women say to me, like, I just can't find a good guy. And they'll say, like, I've had X, Y, Z happen in this relationship and in this relationship. You start to see a trend.
Okay.
And, like, they ask me, like, can't you relate? The question always comes up, same experience? And I can always say, no. That's fair. Absolutely not the case.
I definitely recognize a change in that, like in my relationships recently. Like my past handful, like of relationships or past couple relationships have been like not super like unhealthy or anything, or like
look, it's
been like, oh well, it ended because they cheated or something. Like there was a pattern of behavior there for a while, and then that the pattern is not there anymore.
I think there has to come a point where you start to ask yourself the question. I'll continue to use dating as the example, right? If you keep saying, wow, that last person was a douchebag. Wow, that last person was really awful, right? Why did you pick them? Right. You have to start asking yourself, what were the patterns that got you there?
Like if they were so bad,
why did you
picking
date them?
Partners like this, yeah.
And that's where you have to start looking for red flags, green flags kind of a thing, right? And then that same holds for friendships, for interpersonal relationships, right? Yeah. If you start to notice that somebody is showing you their red flags, why would you continue to indulge? Why do you give them more money in the trust bank? Don't do that.
Yeah.
Right? So it's that accountability that a lot of us don't tend to have because it's heavy, it's difficult. Because then it shows us that we're the problem, we're the source of all of our issues, and that's a heavy weight to carry.
Well, and I think too, like that's a little maybe too black and white. Like it's not that like all of the issues resolve around you and the choices that you make. Like that's impossible, because it's not just, you're not the only person involved in these interpersonal relationships, but I think a fair amount of them can, and I think that that's a big part that people have a hard time accepting and acknowledging, that like a large part of it, like you play a large role, right? Like it's not just you, it's not just the other person in these interpersonal relationships, these friendships, romantic partnerships. Like it's not just you and it's not just them. Like you both play a big role, and I think that's just where people struggle, is again that accountability, right? And like holding that empathy for other people and acknowledging that like they're people too, and they have just as much stuff, if not more, going on that you do, right? And people are not so well-rounded that they are incapable of making mistakes. They're not infallible,
Yeah. And then I would say, can you fix these things?
Of course you can. I mean, that's the only choice you have is to, navigate these challenges and navigate these differences to get somewhere where they both, you and the other person or the group of people, blend together harmoniously. Like, it takes time, it takes work. Like, but, preferring your dog over a human interaction.
That one blows my mind to this day still.
It's just not, that's not the way, man. It's just not the answer. Like, you're going to continuously sit and spin your wheels and be in a cycle, and you are never going to get out of that ditch that you are in.
I do.
Without having a little bit of experience.
It just kind of blows my mind that we've allowed ourselves as a society to sit there and start to downplay each other. Right, these jokes create such a negative concept for people, right?
Yeah.
Like it stems. You have that starting joke, and from there, a lot of other nasty jokes come from it, right? Yeah. Like all men suck.
Right, like that one. Like, come on, or saying all women, or anybody,
or you have these awful statements like you hear guys say again, unhealed people, like, oh, women are whores. Like, how dare you make these kind of wild assumptions, right? And I understand that people have their damage, but if you've gotten to the point where you start to make these carte blanche,
right,
blanket statements, the problem lies in you, right?
Right.
Like, you can't sit there and just paint every single person with the same brush.
Fair. Oh, that's a good one. You can't paint everybody with the same brush. That's cool.
Like, I understand that as humans, we're pattern engines.
Right.
Our brains are designed to sit there, pick up patterns, and then we start to deal with people with those patterns. That's actually how racism stems, right?
Or just any kind of, like, civil issue.
Sure.
Realistically.
Sure, absolutely. But once you start to create those patterns, that's when that paintbrush starts to just roll over every one of those same patterns where you can't do that. And maybe it takes some extra work to kind of break yourself of that.
Well, it's just the concept of nuance, man. Like, you can't just generalize everybody and everything. Like, that's such a lazy way of navigating life.
I can actually call out a moment where I had to, like, reset my brush.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Were you racist?
No.
I'm just kidding, man. I'm just kidding. Go ahead. I'm waiting.
I gotta go.
Yeah.
No, it's with you.
What?
Yeah.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
Oh, God. I was not prepared.
Remember, I have a rule.
Yeah.
Right? My patterns say that if you have a bunch of tattoos, you're hurting. You're probably hurting. And to be fair, I wasn't wrong. But
not entirely.
But I gave you, I didn't just paint you with that brush and say, oh, thanks, peace out now.
Yeah.
He has every tattoo known to man on his body.
I have
right?
I have a lot. Legs aren't done yet, but everything else is.
But by refusing to just stick to those patterns, right? Wow. And say, well, all people suck, or all tattooed people are a certain way, right?
Yeah. And I don't think that means that, like, people can't exhibit certain behaviors. Like, you can't see certain patterns that do, kind of resonate to be true, but, like, at the same time, like I said, it's just such a lazy way of navigating your life and making your judgments or your inferences about people and like,
agreed.
There's no nuance in that.
So then I pose to us in the solution portion of this conversation, it's let's pretend for just a moment that we could fix this. Right, let's pretend.
Well, definitely, I don't even think you would pretend. You definitely can, right?
Well, no. Like, before you get to the actual solution, right?
Okay.
I want you, as the viewer, to, like, really sit here and conceptualize this with me. Pretend for a moment. Close your eyes if you have to, but pretend for a moment.
I'm gonna do that. Go ahead. Yeah, I like this.
That you are perfectly fine and actually excited to meet with people, to meet with your friends. You're going out for some lunch, you're going out for a coffee, you're excited to see a group of people that may not be your close friends, but you want to catch up with them. Imagine those wonderful feelings of laughing and making jokes and catching up with them and exchanging experiences that you've had since the last time you saw them. Or maybe imagine being able to go out and have a meeting with a potential employer or potential business prospect. And in that conversation, you get to exchange ideas of grandeur, of potential and opportunity. And you can only do these things because you're open to it. You're accepting to the idea that people are wonderful and that everyone's trying to get to a better place. And you are now involved in that process, right? Imagine you get to meet with your parents, of which maybe your relationship has been somewhat tumultuous. And you can have a positive and happy conversation with them. Or maybe you already get along with them. But this all comes from and roots from being able to accept people. Being able to look forward to hanging out with different people in that exchange of ideas and, more importantly, exchange of somewhat human love.
Wow. I don't know if you guys actually practice that. If you didn't, go back and rewind. Rewind this episode and genuinely close your eyes and really conceptualize, really imagine, and put yourself in that situation. You can alter your brain chemistry.
Absolutely.
By meditating on stuff like that. Like, I will tell you that stuff like that, and like closing my eyes and putting myself in a situation where I feel certain ways, or that I'm like healed, or whatever you want to call it, you know, capable or having the capacity to do these things. I'm telling you, if you guys did not do that, that was awesome.
You like that?
Rewind, close your eyes and do that, because like that's realistically where you have to go, right? Like, that's the solution. I'm not saying that you have to like relinquish all your boundaries.
No.
You know, get rid of everything that you've put in place thus far. Like, especially when you talked about the tumultuous relationship with parents. Like, obviously in that one, you probably saw like my brain twitch in that part of the meditation. But like, honestly, that is what true healing looks like, is accepting that people are people regardless of where they're at. And like I said, that doesn't mean that you have to relinquish you know, these boundaries that you've set, or that you have to like go back on anything that you've said, or like these things that you've done, so that you can, you know, respect yourself and your place that you have in the relationship. But what it does mean is that like true healing, true bliss looks like doing that. True bliss looks like accepting people for who they are, and letting that just be, and not trying to change that, or not trying to avoid it at all costs, and, you know, preferring your dog over human interaction, right? Like that, there's no healing in that.
No. And the reason I did that little exercise is because I think if you want a solution, you have to be able to conceptualize and see what your life looks like after you've solved it.
Yeah.
I want you to feel those feelings during that time, right? Feel what it's like to have the embrace of another human being in a hug and be happy about it.
Right.
Feel what it feels like to really enjoy the company of another person. Are you getting a little misty-eyed there in the conceptualization?
Mm-mm.
Oh, you look a little misty-eyed.
Right now?
You were, not now. So we've started the whole conceptualization thing. Now talking about real options for solutions, right? We're not going to sit here, take you down this nasty journey of why do you hate people so much and being unhappy, without offering some kind of potential solution. And these are some of the things that I personally practice whenever I get a little bit dark in wanting to interact with people. And the first one is focusing on gratitude. Being grateful for who you are, what you have, who you have around you, and the work you have done mentally, emotionally, physically, spiritually to get there.
Yeah.
Like, you cannot sit there and discredit yourself the entire time and then hope that your relationships will go fine.
Yeah.
Like, that doesn't work.
That's fair.
You can't sit there and be like, I'm a piece of shit and all the work I do doesn't mean crap. And then you go, okay, people are wonderful though. I love talking to people. Like, that doesn't work. It doesn't fit. And you need to sit there and actively be grateful for the effort you put in and the effort that you put out into people as well, right?
For sure.
And then by changing your gratitude, it'll change your attitude. Notice the words.
Nice.
There's attitude in gratitude. It's all about how you perceive and interact with things, right?
Yeah. To me, it's like that lens that you look at life through.
Mm-hmm. If you have gratitude, you'll have a good attitude. So you focus on positivity, a mindset of good, of healthy. It's how you help to attract better people into your life, and that's because you are a better person for it.
Yeah.
You attract good people when you behave like a better, healthier person. If you are a person that backbites, if you are a person that breaks promises, if you're a person that cannot be honest, you will attract those people that are okay doing the same things, because the standard that they hold for themselves is going to match the bar that you hold for yourself.
Fair.
Right?
Yep. People treat you based on the way that they feel about themselves. And like, I'll die on that hill, man. It's so true. It's so true.
Agreed. If you feel that it's okay to tell little white lies and it's okay to not be completely brutally honest with people, great. Those are the people that will match you and surround yourself with.
My friend's like sitting sideways.
Well, yeah, I realize that if this part is aiming at my mouth, I'm good. It doesn't have to be right here the whole time.
It's just funny.
I want to see my screen. So, effectively, the attitude you have to have has to reflect the interactions you want to have.
Yeah. That's
right?
fair.
I want to have a solid, reliable, loyal, exciting, positive relationships. I found Devon. Right? But I had to put that out into the world.
Right.
And every person I've dated, they match that criterion.
Yeah.
Right? Because I know what I want. I know who I want to be.
Yeah.
I put that out into the world. That's what comes back at me.
That's fair.
I think one of the most beautiful compliments I get are, wow, it's so easy to open up to you and talk to you.
Same, dude. Like, I just even the other day had someone say that, and I was like, "Oh, really?" They're like, "Yeah." Like, it feels really good to know that, like, I can be my genuine and authentic self and just say what I need to say and be who I want to be and just be myself and not have to worry about the reaction or, like, some kind of inflection in emotion that you're going to have. Like, you're going to listen.
And I don't think that it's so much a reflection on we're especially good at, like, listening, but more so the energy we're willing to put out towards people
for sure.
is the energy that we're going to have coming back in. And that's wonderful. Like, I want to be a safe space for people to talk to me, open up to me, and say whatever they're feeling. But it starts with your attitude.
Yeah.
And then from there, you start to work on your healing aspects of it, right? If you've conceptualized things, you've been grateful, you've had a good positive attitude, then you can focus on your healing, right? Focus on why you're frustrated with others, frustrated with yourself, and seek your personal root of why you are in the position you are in. Mm-hmm. Hating people isn't okay.
It's not it, man.
It is not normal.
You don't hate people.
You being disliking and completely distrustful of people is not normal. It stems from you. You are the root cause somewhere, somehow.
Well, or it just stems from experiences that you've had. Like, identify that experience, identify that sore spot that you have, and you'd be surprised where it is. You'd be surprised where you uproot some things sometimes. You're going in here and you thought your weeds were growing around this side of the house. You had no idea it was actually growing inside.
Yeah, and I want to make a small clarification, right? Like, we have a natural and healthy distrust of people in general on the initial meeting of people, because that is a preconditioned thing we've had from evolution, right? Like,
right.
If
like, whoa, who are you? What are you doing? What do you want?
Our older generation of ourselves, we're always kind of have to be worried, like, are you going to clonk me overhead and try to take my resources?
Right.
But we don't live in that society so much anymore. You should still have, like, a natural inclination to kind of keep your guard slightly up, but go in with a positive attitude of saying, like, this will probably be fine.
Yeah.
Be ready for anything, right? But you'll probably be fine, and things will probably go better than you hope they will.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm talking about. Find that balance, but balance tip the scales towards positivity and an opportunity. And that's kind of how you start to focus on the healing. Realize that you are the source root. What hurt me? Why do I not want to spend time with people? Well, my ex-partner said, hurt me in this way.
Right.
Or my ex-best friend backstabbed me. Okay.
Right.
Recognize how that went wrong. Deconstruct it.
Yep.
What went wrong? Maybe you realize I was setting myself up for failure. Maybe I was the one.
Or just realize that, like, inevitably you're going to experience some pain in life. Like, there is inherent risk that comes with just existing and having these friendships and interacting with other people, right? But, like, avoiding people at all costs makes as much sense as like tracking down the snake that bit you instead of trying to heal yourself of the poison. Tracking down that snake and asking it why did you bite me, and trying to convince it that you didn't deserve to be bitten, instead of just like getting the antivenom and treating the poison.
Or better yet, right? Water can drown you, but it can also nourish you. But I'm not going to drink the water because it can drown me. No, that's silly.
Right, that makes no sense. Right, absolutely. Yeah. Like you're spinning your wheels, man. You're negating all the progress, and you're shorting yourself of the joy and the experience that is, humanity and existing and taking that inherent risk. And like, there's always the other side of that coin where like you take the risk and it works out.
Mm-hmm. So I think the ultimate answer to all of this is realizing that everything starts from you.
Yeah.
We are the stem, we are the root, and more importantly, we are the masters and creators of our own universes.
Yeah, I'll agree with that one.
You are only the main character in your story, which means you get to paint the life you want to paint. Yep. You get to construct the things in this life you want to construct. It is literally you. You are the center of that universe, right?
It's always been you.
So if you want to find good friends, start to study what good people look like. If you find one, study them.
Fair.
Absolutely. And then try to replicate that formula.
Yep, absolutely.
I recognize that a good friend is going to have a certain sense of loyalty. He's going to have a certain sense of honesty. And Devin, you did a great job. You and Derek actually did a great job yesterday. Yeah. You roasted the hell out of me, but it was honesty and it was good. My two friends told me, buddy, you're not sleeping enough. You look like boiled dog shit.
Dude, when Derek
said to me.
Oh my God.
Boiled dog shit.
Who says stuff like that except for Derek? Oh my God.
That was the brutal honesty I needed. Basically indicating you should sleep more.
I'm not recommending you guys talk to all your friends like this. Just uniquely, Fareed is very hard-headed, and he doesn't hear as well unless you scream at him.
I live in my own slightly autistic. I live in my own slightly autistic world, and that's okay.
Yeah.
But sometimes I need someone to
kind of rattle and be like, "Hey, wake up!
Get out of there!
Come on!"
And I acknowledge that. That's a fault in me.
Yeah.
Albeit one I'm working on. Like, again, I'm slightly autistic. I'm on the spectrum. But that does not mean that it's an excuse. Right. It is simply a challenge we overcome. I acknowledge this. My friends acknowledge this by saying I'm hard-headed and that I don't listen, and you have to shake me like a baby sometimes.
No, don't shake babies. Oh my God.
Shake babies?
No, never. Don't shake babies.
Is that what happened to me?
Yeah.
Just kidding, guys. Don't shake babies.
Gosh. We love you guys. Welcome to the new studio. Hope you enjoyed it. Give us some feedback, because this is kind of like, a better take two on how we like originally kind of tried to start. We want to have guests on here. We're trying to make a podcast room that is more, encompassing of having just more than Fareed and I on here. We think either we'll do like couch here, maybe chairs to either side of the couch, and do kind of like a nice, like just like a sitting room kind of esque, or maybe put a really big circle table in here, and then have a hole in the middle of the circle table and put all of the mic stands coming towards you to the edge of the table, and kind of have like that kind of esque. So let us know what you guys think, because we're just trying this out. Neither one of us are professionals here. We both started this podcast with absolutely zilch knowledge of anything. We're still even today changing lighting in the ways that are like, oh wow, that's much better.
Yep.
Why didn't we think of that originally? And so we're getting there, but we value you guys' feedback. We love when you guys email us. Email us at littleprickspod@gmail.com.
And most importantly, comment, like, subscribe. If this resonates with you,
absolutely
share it.
Yeah.
Tell your friends about us. And let's grow this. I mean, I like the Little Pricks community that we've already started to
grow. Oh,
yeah.
No,
you
absolutely.
guys are awesome.
We definitely love
Communicate
you guys.
with us. We would like to talk to you more. And like I said, now, once this room is settled in, we will start doing guests again.
Yeah. Yep.
We have already a few lined up, and we're getting pretty excited about it. So
I'm so excited for a couple of those guests. But we love you guys. Like, comment, subscribe, tune in. We will see you next week. Thanks a lot.